Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to today's webinar. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Lorena. So, question to you as you arrive into the webinar today, where are you dialing in from? We always have a global audience for these kind of things, so feel free to let us know where you are in the world.
Wow,
Berlin,
Mexico.
London with the sun shining.
Dubai, Puerto Colombia, New York.
Nice, pretty
Bahrain.
global,
Wow,
global
look
crowd.
at this. This is so cool. This is amazing. I'm just going to spend my time over here. I don't have to do anything else, do I? That's
India,
amazing.
nice.
Wow. Vishnu, you're up late. Thank
Indeed.
you. We are honoured. Yeah, Middle East is late as well, isn't it? Bahrain. I think it's about what, 3 or 4 hours.
It is.
Bulgaria.
Hi, Yanni.
Yanni. Are you seeing some friends, Katrina?
I am indeed. Considering how little visibility my LinkedIn post got. My poll did okay. It got to 4,000.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Oh, LinkedIn.
Nice. This feels a little bit like our own team.
Sharon is away. You're up late as well. Goodness me.
Yeah, we've got some night owls chat.
Wow.
I love it.
Hello, Enrico. That's amazing.
Okay, we're at the top of the hour. I think it's time for us to start our webinar.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, hello everyone. Yeah. Great to see you. Pleased to see so many of you tuning in. We are here today for our webinar, Skills-Based Hiring is the #1 way to hire. So this webinar is brought to you by TestGorilla. And for those who don't know, TestGorilla is a talent discovery platform. We equip employers with the tools to do skills-based hiring, right? And as part of this effort, we publish an annual report, the state of skills-based hiring, every year to share the key sort of trends and insights into this global movement away from hiring based solely on CVs and resumes. The 2024 edition was launched a few weeks ago. Maybe you've had the opportunity to dip into it already. And if you haven't, hopefully you'll be doing that as soon as we close the webinar today. So what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be going into a little bit deeper into the report findings. We're going to be touching on why skills-based hiring is the #1 way to recruit at the moment, who's doing it best, who's doing it the most, how candidates feel about this transformation, and most importantly, some really actionable, insight-driven ideas and best practices for how to implement skills-based hiring right. So the next bit that we're going to get to is who have we got speaking today. So I'm Olive. I am the head of people and culture at TestGorilla. Skills-based hiring is a subject very true to my heart. That's how we hire everyone at TestGorilla. But it's not just me speaking today. We've got Wouter and we've got Katrina. So Wouter, you're the CEO and co-founder of TestGorilla. Katrina, you're the author of Reboot Hiring and the Robot-Proof Recruiter. I'm going to hand over to you.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. There it is in its real format. I just want to invite you to say a few words, to say hello, sure. Explain why you're excited to talk about skills-based hiring today. Maybe yes. Katrina, you go first.
Okay, so I am Katrina Collier. Obviously, you just said that. I have about 2 decades worth of recruitment experience. I've been in-house, I've been agency, I've been a trainer. I run workshops. I've spoken all around the world. I've talked to recruiters all the time. I'm always working with global teams. I probably do a little bit more in talent acquisition than I do an agency side. I am, of course, I'm probably best known as the author of the Robot-Proof Recruiter, but I have a second book coming out in August, which I'm super excited about, called Reboot Hiring, which is for your hiring managers. It's not for talent acquisition, it's for you to give to them. Possibly hit them with it, but definitely make sure they read it. So that's what I'm up to. And why am I excited to talk about this? Because I think it's quite important. And we need to have as many tools at our disposal as we can to make the recruitment experience better for candidates.
Nice, thank you. Excited to have this conversation with you, Katrina. And Wouter, a few words from you.
Yeah, thanks Katrina for joining. Fantastic to have you here on the webinar. Yeah, so I am the CEO and co-founder of TestGorilla. We started TestGorilla, Otto and I, my co-founder, with the mission of democratizing opportunity for talent through skills-based hiring. So I was extremely excited to see this report coming out and seeing at what amazing pace skills-based hiring is being adopted across the world. It's really insane, like how much a difference a couple of years makes, and this is creating the opportunity for talent around the world. So it's a fantastic thing, and I'm very excited about the results from this report and to talk about it with you all today.
Awesome. Great. Yes, looking forward to a really rich conversation. I encourage everyone, by the way, to drop questions and comments in the chat as we go, and we'll pick them up throughout. And then we also have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end of the session. Let's get into it.
Nice.
I keep reading where everyone's from. Sorry, you keep having to bring me back into the room.
I'll bring you back into the room, Katrina. I'll bring you back into the room. Okay.
So exciting. It's global. Right.
So, which is great because we're looking at the global map. We're looking at the global uptake of skills-based hiring right now. So we know in our reports we surveyed just over 1,000 employers and 1,000 employees, and we have seen that skills-based hiring is the #1 way to hire. So 81% of the people asked in our survey are using it. Now that's in some form, right? So some form of cognitive ability, personality test, maybe role-specific combinations, maybe even take-home assignments. That all falls into the bucket of skills-based hiring. And so it's 81% this year, up from 73 last year and sort of mid-50s the year before that. So we're seeing this really steep incline.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing on the slide here, we've got quite a bit spread kind of around the world. I guess my main question to either of you to start with, why do you think that skills-based hiring is the #1 way to hire right now? Big question to start with, I guess.
Who's going? Am I going?
Katrina, you go.
I'm going. I hope that it's being done to create a better experience for candidates and hopefully something fairer, but also to reduce the bias. I mean, be that even class bias or education background bias. So to make it, that was a big word you used there, Walter, a minute ago. I can't remember what your word was. Not democratic. It was something along those. Democratizing. Yeah. To create more fairness.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I do have concerns about where it is in the process, and I'm sure we'll discuss that.
Absolutely.
I do love the idea, and also hopefully it takes away from people's inability to write a CV or a resume that actually really sells themselves well. It's a very difficult thing to do. So this, gives people an opportunity to be able to, hopefully quickly do a test and feel confident doing it and represent themselves well. So in that respect, I like it. I like the idea of it.
Nice. And Wouter, what about you? Why do you think that there's so much uptake for skills-based hiring at the moment?
Yeah, maybe first a small anecdote. Like when we launched our first report just 3 years ago, right? This is the third edition. We actually had a discussion internally about what to call it. We're like, we're on this trend. We're trying to democratize opportunity for talent, right? By these tests, etc. But there was not one word. So we were talking about things like competency-based recruitment. You might remember, Katrina, or merit-based hiring, or like literally we had a whole discussion. What shall we call it? Like, and then we said like maybe we should call it skills-based hiring. And a lot of people were saying like, look, it's not only about hard and soft skills. It's about way more than just those things. But in the end, we said, okay, let's just coin that term, right? And it's amazing how fast like the world changed. And now everyone is like talking about skills-based hiring, like it's been there forever, but it's so new and being adapted so quickly. Now, to your question, Olive, why is that the case? I think, well, it's skills-based hiring prioritizes skills over experience, clearly, right? And capabilities over education. And I think the benefits are massive, both for companies. You just make better hires in the end if you really embrace it well. You discover these hidden gems, right? These hidden talents that you would surely miss if you would only use CVs or cover letters. You reduce the time to hire, and indeed, to your point, Katrina, you reduce bias very much compared to CV-based hiring. And
I would assume that's one of the big reasons that it's being used. Well. That one should never assume, but yeah.
Yeah. And then on the other side, I mean, there's also the talent side, right? And I think we'll talk about it a bit more later. But they are also embracing and supporting it very much. But and the reason I think is that all of a sudden everyone gets a fair chance to shine, which is really exciting. That's the reason why so many candidates actually really love this. And if you allow me, I can maybe give an example.
Yeah, please.
That really kind of opened my eyes. So I remember, like with TestGorilla, like early on, like we had this job opening for a junior SEO specialist, and we started to use our own product. Right, we were very excited about it. So we had like a bunch of tests, like a multi-measure, like some hard skills around SEO and Google Analytics, but then also cognitive ability and some soft skills. We send out this assessment, and we get like a few hundred candidates. And number one on the list, and I'll call her Laura just to protect her privacy. She was called differently. Was a girl or a woman named Laura from Venezuela. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm obviously going to look at her. So I'm like, boom, open her profile. And then, of course, look at her resume. I think then a resume still comes in handy, right? You want to get, after you have tested the skills, you want to get to know that person. And this was really surprising. I was like, and on her resume, it's like, medical doctor, graduated one year ago. And not only that, she came out first out of 2,500 people who took the medical exam in Venezuela. Apparently that was like a national ranking. So I'm like, what the heck? Like, why are you applying? So I click on her video response, and she's like, look, I know I have really bad TV for this job. I've done a medical career, but because my parents pushed me, because they think it's like there has a lot of prestige and everything. So they pushed me for this medical thing. But my real passion is SEO. I love it. That's what I do in every hour of the day that I have free, and I think I'm really good at it. So please give me this chance to shine. So then we interviewed her, and basically she was amazing, like very, very smart and passionate and everything. And basically my only question was, are you sure you want to give up your medical career? And she's like, hell yeah. And then she the rest is history. And she joined.
But that's where I think it's so exciting in how it can be used. There are so many of us that do exactly that, get pushed into a career that we don't really want to be in, or we get into it and then we get stagnant and want to change. And I've been quite lucky. I've been able to change career through the years, through a lot of luck. But actually you're showing like quite a plausible way, because you're just testing somebody's ability. But I think what was good was you were testing I was going to say technical skills. It's not quite right, but her search engine optimization of skills as such, and immediately being able to see that she's competent, or if not, well, in her case, clearly very good, very competent. And I think that's important. So I do think it'll allow people to have much more of a career that they're happy doing.
Yeah, I very much agree. That's really hard to pick up from a resume, right? From if someone wants to make that career change, you just can't.
I mean, as someone who's recruited, I would have opened her CV and gone, yeah, no, and moved on, because I would have been looking for somebody with 2 to 3 years of actual experience in a company, potentially, depending on, obviously, if it's entry level, no, but that's what would happen, and that's what does happen. And that's why traditionally it's been quite hard for someone to career change. So that's why I'm hearing that. I'm actually like, that's actually really cool use for it.
Yeah,
give somebody the chance to prove their abilities and change direction.
100%.
And to be honest, it's only one use case, right? It's the same principle for people who now all of a sudden get a chance, who come from maybe a less privileged background, who didn't have the opportunity to do all kinds of cool experience next to their studies, because they had to work in the supermarket, for example, right? There's so many people who don't have the perfect CV, let's say, for all kinds of reasons, who now all of a sudden get a chance to show what they're worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're right. Wonderful. Let's move on to thinking about actually some of the metrics that have that came up in our survey about the reasons that that people might be moving to skills-based hiring, the actual positive benefits that they're seeing within their companies. So they're on the screen here, just to read them out quickly. So we got an improvement in retention when using skills-based hiring, diversity, of course. You touched on that also, Katrina, in your answer, sort of reducing the bias, increasing that diversity, reducing the mishires, of course, hiring people who actually have real confidence, are going to excel in this role and enjoy it also. Reducing the time to hire and reducing the cost to hire as well, using tools to kind of accelerate the process as well. Is there anything that really stands out for you there, Katrina? Is there anything that surprises you, or you think that there might be even another benefit that isn't there already?
Yeah, I mean, the one we discussed previously is like the reduced time to hire. That is such a vanity metrics. I actually wish we didn't worry about that one, because someone has a 3-month notice period, or your hiring manager is really slow. That one always gets blown out of the water. So it's great if it reduces time to hire, and it doesn't surprise me it does, but that's one I'm always like, yeah.
It's not your favorite.
I think what's really important is if it's reducing mishires and improving retention, I think that's really important. I feel like the onus for that should fall on managers and leaders far more than it seems to always fall on TA, which is incorrect. It shouldn't. As long as that relationship's there and they're really able to get from their managers exactly what skills are required and therefore test for the right skills, then it will absolutely lead to that. And that's super, super exciting, because the cost of failed recruitment, I mean, but there's an extraordinary stat somewhere in the Robot Proof Recruiter about the number of people who decide in the first week if they're staying in the company or not.
Right.
And it's extraordinary high figure. It's like, I don't know, 50% or something. It's quite worrying. So to get that down and to be, because you are finding, I mean, like the story Walsh just gave, you're finding people who are passionate about doing the role.
Yes,
well.
and aligned from the very beginning also. Yeah. I'm just going to pop a poll actually out into the audience. I'm going to ask all of those who are watching, which of the survey outcomes here you'd find most impactful for your hiring? And we'll just let that sort of trickle in the background.
I'm going to slide over here and read comments.
Yes, you have a read, Katrina. And Wouter, is there anything that really pops out to you here, especially as a CEO, right? We've got 170 people now at TestGorilla. They've all been hired with skills-based hiring. Which of these metrics do you find particularly interesting?
Well, the first thing I would say is like all of them. So I remember like also with the first report, and they all got higher, all these metrics, since we started tracking them 3 years ago. The first time we saw them, it was like, okay, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is the results are amazing. The bad news is anyone gonna believe us? This is like North Korean election results or something, right? It looks too good to be true, pretty much. But I just want to emphasize, like, we're really surveying it in a very professional way, even with agencies, and we're not surveying our own customer, for example. These are 1,000 employers, 1,000 employees around the world, mostly Western countries, Latin America. So that's the first thing that really stands out. The results are just insane, and I think that's also a big driver for the adoption, right? That people are really seeing, whoa, this is really working. Maybe another thing that stands out specifically from these 5, and that's really top of mind for me as a founder and CEO is the diversity, the D&I thing. At TestGorilla, indeed, like you said, Olive, like we have hired everyone through our own product, apart from the founders. Sorry,
and we probably should have said them.
Two white guys. But yeah, so and I must admit, so we have a very diverse group of people, right? So I'm really proud of that. But I must say, at the leadership level, it's a little bit less diverse, and it got me thinking quite a lot lately, especially like why that is. And I think it comes back again to skills-based hiring. But let me elaborate a little bit on that. So I'm personally 43. I actually just had a hair implant. That's why I have my hair shorter here than on the first picture on the slide. But the point is, I think a lot of in the leadership team level, right, at tech companies, people are above 40. They're 40 in their 50s often. So what does that say? It says that it matters what you do in your 20s and in your 30s. And if I reflect on my own career, in the past, let's say 20 years or so, I've had amazing privileged opportunities, really, like to enter Cambridge University, to get sponsoring for a startup when I was 20, to work at Bain & Company, at Heineken. All doors open for me. I've been very, very lucky. And because of all these opportunities and learnings, I felt ready to start TestGorilla. I felt prepared, right? But now here's my question to the audience, right? Would let's say, North African immigrant who moved with her parents, let's say, to London or Paris or New York or something in her 20s or in teens, would she have, with the same set of brains and drive as me, would she have gotten the same opportunities as I did? I think we all know the answer,
Yeah.
right? And that's why DE&I is so incredibly important in hiring, so that we really have, as employers, we have a responsibility to give talent from all walks of life like a chance early on in their career, and that's where skills-based hiring kicks in for me. And that's how you create like a future diverse group of leaders also.
And I think what's lovely about this, and I'm going to answer Mark's question as well, is, you know, if you did blind CVs or resumes, you know, where they take the name off and they take the background off and all this kind of stuff, you don't still get to the proof that that person has capabilities. So when you're then presented with them in interview, your own biases can come up and you can knock them out because you're like, of the demographic you just described, for example, and, you know, you've got bias potentially. So I like the fact they're getting to prove their worth. So that's really nice, so that you kind of go, well, okay, I can feel my biases rising, but yet they've shown that they've got the capability. I like Mark's comment, and I'll just, for the sake of the recording, I'll read it out because I've no idea if the comments will be in there. But another reason why we are deviating away from resume-based hiring towards skill-based hiring is that employers realize that resumes are easily AI auto-created to match best with concrete job offer. How robust does the panel think the survey-based methodologies are towards this potential pitfall? So I find that a really interesting comment, because I'm not sure I'm convinced that many resumes are AI auto-created, but we've always used templates for resumes, and they're so incredibly hard to write at all. Like, even recruiters write the worst resumes and CVs that I have seen, and they look at them all day. They're difficult documents. So I don't know if that would be some of the reasons. I think it's more the reassurance of being able to prove the skills and know that somebody can do the job before you go into the interview process. You can pop this in early on in the screening process, can't you? And then know. So I feel that's probably more of a reason. I'd love to know Walsh's thoughts on that.
Also I have some thoughts on this. Thanks for the question, Mark. I think it's a fantastic question. First of all, I think AI it's super exciting from my perspective. It's really transforming the way we work, and therefore also the way we hire. And maybe I have a slightly different opinion than you, Katrina, but I think CVs or resumes and cover letters are dead. Like who? I think you're stupid if you're a candidate and you're not using AI now to write it. So I feel pity for recruiters who still use CVs at the beginning of their recruiting funnel, which I think is 20th century stuff, and you get like 100 perfectly written AI.
Managers are old. They're over 40 like you, and they want CVs. So,
but I think there's a better way, right? So I think it really pushes that the skills-based hiring because of that. Because all these resumes and cover letters now look the same, and I think also in the type of skills that recruiters are looking for is changing because of AI. I think there's a shift from the harder skills to softer skills. So hard skills like, let's say, translation or even coding or writing, right? Like, or whatever data entry. That's all. You can all do that with AI pretty much. And if not now, then very soon. So I think recruiters are more and more looking for soft skills, right? Like leadership skills, communication skills, planning, all those kind of things are still like the truly human skills. I think we're seeing that shift. And that's again where you need a tool like TestGorilla also, or some kind of skills-based hiring to pick that up. Another thing that we see, and we get a lot of requests from recruiters for, are ways to pick up if people are embracing AI, because you want to hire people who do that, right? Who can work with these tools and be way more productive. I personally don't want to hire people who don't embrace AI. Like that they will be less productive than someone who's as talented.
Well, I'm surprised I'm on this webinar then. I flatly refuse to use ChatGPT. I think it's all about the AI that you choose to use.
Yeah.
But can we talk on a negative that I'm concerned about, though? Because one thing we have talked about diversity, but and maybe this is further on, and I've jumped ahead, Olive. But my only concern is for anybody who is dyslexic, dyspraxic, needs an accommodation. There needs to be thought that goes around that, because I do know, because you guys, thanks to Yo, I'm mispronouncing his name, in my next book, because we discussed this, that you do allow accommodations. But I also read on sites like Recruiting Hell, and there are several other anti-work. There's several on Reddit threads where people are really concerned to ask for an accommodation. And I think it's incredibly important that companies are clear multiple times through the process that you will not be discounted. Like, because I think they go into anxiety immediately thinking, oh, well, if I ask for more time to complete the test, that therefore I'll get ruled out.
Yeah, this is a really nice segue, Katrina, actually into the next point, because
I just think it's really important.
We'd be remiss, right, just to talk about the benefits to employers, right? This isn't, we cater to candidates as well. We care deeply that people have the opportunities to apply to their dream jobs and land their dream jobs. And so we need to take the candidates into account too. What do candidates think about skills-based hiring, right? And we know, and we can see on the screen here, that we've got an increasing percentage of candidates that really prefer the skills-based hiring process for all different kinds of reasons, right? And I would like to touch on the benefits, but I think we can also have a look here on that 57% on the screen. That we've got of the 15 who don't prefer the skills-based hiring, so that's not 57% overall, right? But of those who don't like skills-based hiring, they do have that test anxiety. It can be scary sometimes, right? To feel about the test. Yeah.
And someone who will remain nameless, so I'll get in trouble, regularly failed a set of exams that stopped this person in their career. They couldn't get any further because they worked themselves up into such a state. And that wasn't even the kind of tests that you're doing, which are really quite short and sharp, really. And that actually held them back through their entire career. And I think test anxiety, because it's a memory game, and it's quite tough. And I'm not surprised that people have that. So I think it's being able to make allowances for that as well. Like it can't. I think the fear is that this could be the only way a company hires, and there has to be multiple ways that you look at the applicant, not just these, if that makes sense. And then you get around that test anxiety.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually just going to launch a poll right now to the group, another one, to see which aspects causes most test anxiety.
Oh, interesting.
So guidelines or lack of prep and lack of support, etc. Let's see what pings up there. But Val, did you have any thoughts on this, please?
Yeah, no, I fully agree with Katrina. How this is so important to get this right for companies like us. So we do in our product, we have the option to ask for accommodate like more time because of.
But does that rule you out? You say people just think, oh, if I ask for that, I'm going to get ruled out.
No, well, we don't know. Some people might not ask, right? But quite a lot of people ask, and it's anonymous, so it's being used. But actually, I was really struck just last week by some research that our internal team did about screen readers, so for people who are visually disabled, and they had some recordings of people actually going through our test and then with screen readers. And it was pretty bad. So we thought we were doing quite a good job already with a lot of contrast and clear pictures and stuff. We really tried. We didn't try hard enough. So there's a lot of stuff for us to do, and it's very high on our product roadmap to get that right. But I agree, because our mission is democratizing opportunity for everyone. It's clearly not for everyone yet. So this is really high on our list to get that right.
That's true. There was another question here I wanted to answer as well. Robert Newry, does the panel think soft skills are a misnomer? I have seen curiosity listed as a skill. Surely a skill is something you can learn and use experience to get to a competency in. I do think curiosity is a skill, and I think it's a skill that can be developed, and I think it's massively lacking in the world of recruitment. And that's all I'm going to say on that particular point.
Interesting.
Oh, I know. I just do. I find it. I do this thing when I give keynotes, and it gives the audience the opportunity to ask me questions, and I am asked so few questions that just demonstrate this incredible lack of curiosity. And you think they're recruiters, that's their job, to ask questions on it. It's quite fascinating. Anyway, I don't want to send you off the rails. Time is running away, and we've got stuff to get to.
We do. I think maybe we'll move on to the next part of the conversation, in which we say that it's clear that skills-based hiring is on the rise. It's indisputable, right? And we can, as it says in the report, probably stop thinking about it's upcoming, it's the next big thing, it's here to stay, and it's only going to get more. Great. Now we have to switch our attention to how we do it best, right? And we're probably thinking that not everyone is using skills-based hiring in the right way at the right
Mm-hmm.
moment in the hiring. And we want to share some best practices around how to do that. And I'd like to spend a little bit of time thinking about how we do that. We've got 4 best practices here, things around using multi-measure, so using, different types of tests throughout the testing process, screening resumes after you've screened for the skills. So doing skills testing at the very beginning of the funnel. We've spoken about that already. Do what you can to alleviate the test anxiety, also discussed. And using tools to automate that assessment evaluation, right? So we see a lot of people dipping their toes in the water with skills-based hiring and just getting overwhelmed with the amount of people that they need to sort of evaluate and analyze and weigh up against each other. So a lot that we can be doing better. Maybe about it. Can I ping over to you and for you to talk a little bit more about the multi-measure testing and why it's so important? Why is it our number 1 here?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing I would like to say is, I'm incredibly excited to see 81% of the respondents saying, hey, we're doing some kind of skills-based hiring. But that word some kind is, I think, really important. I think if you would ask what percentage of organizations do perfect skills-based hiring, it's maybe, I don't know, my best guess would be 1 or maybe 3 or 4%, but it's a very small percentage, and it's a trend that's just starting. It's just taking off, right? So I think the world will look very different in 10 or 20 years from now when we really have embraced all these best practices as organizations. But one of them is there has been multi-measure testing, right? So there has been pretty solid academic research since I think the early 90s or something about what actually best predicts job success, right? So they looked at references, job experience, like different types of individual tests, for example, cognitive ability. But the number 1 clearly was multi-measure testing. So what is multi-measure testing? It's basically testing for different things. That's also what we try to mimic in our product, right? You can have different tests. So testing for example, both cognitive ability. So, and I think there was also a question somewhere about this, but like people, their ability to learn the next thing, right? The next coding language, let's say. For cognitive ability, some hard skills, some soft skills, maybe the work preferences, right? Like is it a good fit with the organization and the job, the way of working, remote or not? Is it a lot of freedom, a little bit of freedom? So I think if you test for all these different things, you get a very holistic perspective of a candidate, and that's why it scores so well. And I think, and if we look at our own product and the use by our customers, we have around 10,000 customers. The usage is pretty bad. Like most companies just like, they're so afraid, so I'll just add 1 or 2 tests. It still works. It's better than nothing, but it's way better if you do like multi-measure testing and add different types of tests. You get way better results because you get a more holistic picture of a candidate.
So I think so much of that comes to Marissa's comment. And when I wrote, I've seen this, I've seen your comment, which is I've encountered many candidates who are unhappy with skill-based hiring. How do you handle candidates who are unwilling to take the tests or insist on speaking with someone before testing? We've occasionally seen negative Glassdoor reviews due to our use of testing. So I think that goes into a lot of how you do this well. So please do not give somebody a test before they have the opportunity to know the location, the flexibility, and the salary. Like, people just want to know that stuff. To be fair, it should be on the job description. It should be clear as day on the job description, but we're not going to fix that on this webinar. But if they don't know what the salary is, how dare you ask them to do a test, in my humble opinion, like, because it's a basic. And I know sometimes people just rule people out because they ask about the salary, but let's be honest, we all have bills to pay. We all want to know. We don't normally want to take a step down. So that can be some of the process. It can be the length of the tests. Some of these tests, particularly in the world of technology, they can take like 4 hours to a whole day, and then they never get feedback. So it's like, I love your tests are not long, are they? From what I saw, the TestGorilla, they're short tests. Keep the tests under, preferably close to like 30 minutes, under an hour. Give them feedback. Everybody has to give feedback, which is some of that automating. You need to use other tools to be sending emails with the results and all this kind of stuff. My other little caveat, which we've spoken about before, because I was told I was allowed to not agree with everything, was yes, you can test certain skills, but please do not use personality tests to rule someone out. Because recruiters have every personality under the sun, and that doesn't mean they can't do their job. Stick to something that proves somebody can do their job. So I think that would be some of the best practices that you could do. But I also feel a lot more time, and Reboot Hiring is about this, and chapter 5 of the Robot Proof Recruiter is about this, is speaking to your managers and actually finding out the skills that they need, like really getting them to articulate who they need to hire is actually the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
If we did that better, and then we tested better, with a really lovely flow, wow, yes, that would be amazing. That's what I'd like to see.
Getting those skills super clear before you even create the tests.
Any of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I like that. And I think you've also touched on what's the most voted answer in the previous poll around test anxiety. The guidelines and the expectations. So yes, if you're going to have a test that's going to be an hour, say that it's going to be an hour. And I think just flagging this up at the beginning.
Oh my God, that's so true. Have you ever done those feedback polls and you're going through it and it's going on and on and on? And you're like, oh my God, I'm at question 50. Like, and then you just stop. And there was probably one more question and you were done. That's, good point.
Nice.
Yours are really clear, aren't they? They do say how long.
Yeah, you say the progress as you go throughout, indeed. Yeah. Wonderful. We are going to head on to the what's next. We've just covered a little bit of the how, and I encourage people to head back into the report if they want to go deeper on that, and we'll have questions at the end. I think that some people will have more questions around the specifics of like, how do I do this? But now I want to look forward. Let's cast our lens forward. What do you think is next for skills-based hiring? It's clear that it is the future. It's also the present, but it's the future, right? So what's next? What needs to happen to realize even more of the potential? What should we be keeping an eye on?
Yeah.
Trina.
You have to, if you really, really want to do this incredibly well, you need to map your entire organization, all of the people, all of their jobs and all of their skills, if you really want to do this well, because then you will retain people. So I know there's lots of talk about Gen Z being job hoppers. I think we're all job hoppers, to be fair. Gen X just take a little bit longer, in my humble opinion, but we'd all like to develop and we'd all like to grow. If you knew all of the skills across your company, you can create skill-based work, skill-based projects and pull in people from all over. You will increase your retention. You will reduce your need to hire externally and all sorts of things. So that's what needs to happen, to be honest. If to do this brilliantly, the entire organization needs to be mapped. And that's probably what's delaying it, because at the moment we're just trying to get through the 2020s, which have been hell. So that's my opinion. Anyway,
what do you think about that, Walter? Not necessarily in the 2020s being hell, but
I know he's obviously not had the 2020s of hell.
I think it's incredibly exciting, and I think we'll see a lot of developments on both on the supplier side, let's say. So companies like us, we have some really exciting plans ahead of us, and I think the biggest thing is becoming much more holistic in the way we look at matching companies and jobs. So you can expect a lot in that direction from us in really getting that right. So not just like only looking at the hard skills, for example, but really looking at, hey, what does the organization need, the job, what kind of an individual, what are their motivations, like, so really what are their skills, capabilities, and really kind of getting much more holistic in that matching, and much more and ever more data driven, right? But we're assessing like 500,000 people a month or something, so we get so much data, so we get better and better at at getting really smart and at that matching. So that thing, I think that's something that will happen. I think on the user side, on the organizations, right, the customer side, from our perspective, I think people will get a lot better at it. So and I think we have a role to play to share these best practices, and you've been sharing quite a few now, also, Katrina, in getting skills-based hiring right at the different stages of the recruitment funnel. And I think the most important thing is start with it. Don't start with the CV, because you immediately introduce bias in your funnel,
after
right?
you've told them what the salary and location is.
Exactly. No, I agree. I was nodding like as much as I get, but I very much agree.
Sorry, I was too busy ranting at the camera to notice you nodding.
Yeah, no. I very much agree. We try to do that on our own job board. If you take a look, there's all the salaries are there as a requirement.
I mean, I totally get why companies freak out about it. It's because they've got salaries all over, and they've got gender pay gaps and all sorts of pay gaps. And I get
Yeah,
it.
that's all the wrong reasons, right? For not being transparent.
It's all the wrong reasons.
For sure.
But it's all going to come out anyway.
And maybe one last thing is, I think, and I've said that before sometimes, but I think if I have three little kids, like they're 1, 3, and 5, I think when they enter the job market in let's say 20 years from now or so, they will probably ask me like, Dad, I heard that like in her horrible 20s, as you said, and before, people were actually selected on the basis of their CV or their resume. Is this really true? And I will say, yeah, that's what's really true. And it's like the same thing, like for us, like driving without seatbelts or something, or smoking in public, which was still allowed like 20 years ago. So it will be the same thing.
What are we going to do with you? Like, they can go out to work at 16. You don't have to wait until they're like 23. Just saying. My lot. Are we going to answer Joel's question? Sorry, Ollie.
I was going to pop another poll, just in case we haven't had enough of polls. The question is, how confident is this audience that you can do skills-based hiring well now? So I'm going to launch that. We've got very confident to not confident at all, and we'll see where people score. The first one is very confident, which I love that optimism to start with. But sorry, Katrina, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I just was thinking there's a couple of questions here. I don't know which one to go for. Caroline's looks easier. Or Carolyn. I probably mispronounced it as an Australian. Caroline Davies, super keen to know from the panel more about the report. If there's one thing we should take away from this year's report, should it be? I think it's that better retention and the less failed hiring, like the less mishires. That I think is really, it just shows that it works and it deserves more of our time and investment.
And I guess because it's such a new movement, really, it's taken a little while for us to be able to get that data, right? And now we're sort of a few years in, and we're starting to see this trickle through, and we're starting to see the proof points of this hiring. I think we probably enter a new, really exciting kind of proof point phase of the skills-based hiring. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Katrina.
Yeah, I think another one that we maybe didn't talk about enough, but so we did talk about the fact that 68% of candidates across the globe now prefer skills-based hiring, but there are huge differences if you kind of double click. So in the US, it's already 81%. So it's really high, or 82% in Latin America. Same thing for the Gen, what is it? Gen Z? Gen Z. Also 82. So you see like the most modern groups. Basically, I would say the US is ahead of us, us being continental Europe, where the scores are much lower. And the younger generations, they're really embracing it. So there's
it will be the younger generations for sure.
Yeah,
we old is a bit more set in our ways. But it also then it becomes a thing of like, look, I have 20 years experience of doing this. Don't make me do a test. And I think that's probably what some of the recruiters experience when they're doing those senior and professional hires. Is there is a bit more of like my experience speaks for itself. Don't make me do a test. And so I do think where we have, particularly in companies that have really pushed, countries that have really pushed people into getting degrees, and there's a lot of graduates out there and not that many jobs. I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for them to really show their capabilities and make it a bit fairer and a little less about where the degree came from and things like that. So I'm not surprised it's being embraced more of the young as well.
Yeah, and I think we're also starting to see in some countries, at least, there is a bit of a drop off in people going to university as well. And so indeed, this sort of speaks to that as well, and giving them opportunities, regardless of whether you've been to university or not.
Yeah,
I agree. Okay, so we've sort of come to the more formal part of this webinar, and now it's just pure questions and answers. So I invite anyone who has, actually, let's do a little pulse check on how confident people are feeling on skills-based hiring. We're sort of equal between somewhat and very confident, which I think is a good place for us to land. Very few people are feeling not confident at all in skills-based hiring, which is wonderful to see. It would be interesting to think about if we'd asked a few years ago what those responses would have been, but this is a good place today. Yes, we're going to head straight into the Q&A part of the session. So if people haven't asked a question yet, please pop that in the chat, and we'll scoop that up and we'll answer those. I'm going to stop hiring so we can see see the faces a little bit more.
Goes and pulls the face.
So we have, interesting question to start with from Kim. How do you define or measure a mishire? Is there an industry definition that we have here?
I would imagine it's just, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
Katrina,
somebody who starts and doesn't stay. Or you start and you regret it really. You're like, oh my God, why did I hire them? Because it's that they almost deceived you in the interview process. So to me, a mishire is that they just didn't make it through even the first few weeks.
Okay.
They certainly, I've watched a company implode because they hired the wrong sales director. And the sales director didn't sell and the bench filled up and the company imploded. Yeah. So I've seen that happen to a consultancy. That's a mishire on a monumental portion, like proportion. But I don't know if there's a definition for it.
Yeah, but I would agree with that definition, right? If people leave, that's the most measurable thing you have. But it can be for many different reasons, right? So they can maybe still have the perfect hard skills like JavaScript coding or marketing, but actually have behaviors that are really against like the company behaviors, for example, that really don't align or ways of working. And it's like, oh my God, this is never going to work out. It's like, and actually, that's why.
Oh, sorry.
No, go on.
I always get really excited to speak. I'm shocking at interrupting. It's like, if there's a skill rating on interrupting, I'm 100%.
We don't have a test for that yet, Katrina. It's not available on TestGorilla.
It has to be based on my skill level of it, okay? Because it's just extraordinary. Actually, one of my biggest fears about going fully skill-based hiring, which I unfortunately do think might happen, is you could hire somebody who scores 100% on everything and they're the worst person you've ever hired. They're so toxic. So you're absolutely right. It's got to be that multi-approach
measure
to it, multi-measure.
Yeah.
Because and that's where every time I hear it, I'm like, I don't know about skill-based hiring. Because of that, if we go too much, it's got to be part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're getting better and better as an industry also, right? To test for more different kind of skills and behaviors and culture, you name it. But I agree with you. I think right now doing hiring without any human interaction, I don't think the technology is ready for that yet. I would not be an advocate for that for our own company.
I've already seen I wrote it in Reboot Hiring. I saw a company do that. Oh dear.
From start to finish without any human engagement.
Yeah, it was immediately you apply, get sent a test, and then if you fail the test, it was the communication that is sent to that person, which is so unbelievably condescending and unnecessary. And it blew up on Reddit to the point that the developers then went and put all of these 1-star Google reviews on the company's page. And search engine optimization, it's quite important to have a Google page, but the Google page is now gone. So because they put that many 1-star reviews. So, but it was all really about that whole, automating from the get-go, then being very patronizing and all this sort of stuff. Like, we are humans recruiting humans for other humans. So never forget that side is still super, super important.
Yeah, skills-based hiring is not inhuman hiring, right?
No,
it's
a part of the process.
Exactly.
It can be very helpful.
That's perhaps one for you. This is more about the sort of senior level hiring. So Maria's asked, in my experience, lower entry level hires are more likely to have assessments completed, while we struggle to have management and C-level hires follow this path. Any advice?
Yeah, I think that's right. Especially very senior people, like Katrina also mentioned, like they're just not used. It might be the first time ever they heard about it. Whereas younger people might have are getting more used to that being part of the process. In our case, everyone, also the most senior people we hire, are going through the assessment. Obviously, we're drinking our own champagne.
They're all under 43, though.
No, that's but indeed, we often have a conversation before, because like often the pool of candidates is also very limited, so it's very easy to kind of have a quick human interaction before they actually take the assessment. But we know a lot of companies who are using us for these very senior hires as well. So I know a private equity company who are often involved in putting C-level or helping to fill C-level positions at their portfolio companies, right? And they're they're using it, and they were using like really expensive assessment agencies, and tried us, and they're like, oh my god, we get the same results. So now they're just giving everyone a 1 hour TestGorilla an assessment, and it works. But I would say, yeah, in general, there's way more candidates, and also if you look at the total number of candidates we assess, and then the percentage going for non-C-level positions, let's say, is of course far majority. So it is a bit of a different dynamic.
I feel as well it really depends on the age group. So, you know, somewhat older than Walter, like I'm a Gen X, but you know, if you kind of get not that much older than me, and people start getting a little apprehensive about technology, so it could also be concern about like test anxiety, genuinely like, what is this tool, what's this all about? So it might need a lot more explanation as to its purpose, and that it is only an hour, and that, you know, we understand your time is precious, and like really laying it on, because they will be less inclined to complete it, particularly if they don't understand its purpose. As well. It's interesting. People want to know when they're of a certain level, like, why are you making me doing this? What is the point of this? You know, what's the aim? I think that might help, Maria. I'd love you to try and let us know.
I'd argue, I mean, we were talking about guidance and advice and setting expectations. I mean, that level of courtesy should happen at all levels, right? Whether you're senior or whether you're junior, we owe it to our candidates to be as transparent as possible, to explain the why to everyone. Yeah. Sure, maybe those more senior people need a little bit more encouragement.
They need a longer why.
They maybe need a longer why, but the base why are we doing this and bringing people along the journey is true. And
and I must say, like, one of the biggest myths and one of the biggest fears we're fighting as TestGorilla is that fear of like, oh, we might lose candidates if we use an assessment at the top of the funnel. That is not true. I can show you the data. That is not true. It's actually quite the opposite. And you see it in the report. The far majority of candidates likes it because they feel, this is a company where I get a fair chance. It's very easy. They can immediately do it. Like, they can do it at their own time. So actually what we see is people who put it at the beginning get more candidates, not less. So it's like one of the biggest myths around there, like that it will scare away people. Yeah, it might scare one person away, like who might benefit from maybe the white guy from Harvard with extremely privileged background, maybe that person, but there will be 20 other people who now all of a sudden think, hey, here I get a fair chance.
But again, it's about the where. I like that. After they know the basics for the role, before you've got the resume CV. Like, I liked that in there. And I think, again, it goes back to that. They're not long tests. People are aware and they get feedback. And I think that's the really important thing, because the big complaint I see all the time, all over recruiting hell and Reddit, etc., is no feedback. That's crucial. Yeah. So you have to have a way to make sure that they get their feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, and also I agree very much, like, both with the information before you apply and after you apply. It's all about respect for candidates, right? And then I think. Yeah. And there's so much for us also in the product to do, and that we were working on. But I cannot agree with more.
And so actually, important. I think it's also worth mentioning, like, the mental health side of it. I'm going to give a random comparison. I've actually written my memoir, which is very personal. It's about my childhood trauma, and I've been submitting it to publishers and agents, and nothing. Radio silence. Now I'm pretty comfortable in my skin and confident, but that lack of communication has rattled me. So if you've got people who are doing tests and not getting feedback, they're starting to doubt themselves. And, I must have done so badly because I didn't hear back. And actually, maybe they didn't do that badly. Maybe you're just busy. So it's like this communication piece, and far as people's mental health, we need to start understanding that there's a direct correlation.
Absolutely.
So give people the why, communicate clearly.
Yeah.
And it's manners as well. It's just manners.
Respect.
Kindness.
Yeah, I agree. Next question from Yanislava. What's the weight of the results of skills-based hiring in the overall process? So I guess the overall hiring process, you're also taking into account interviews and resumes, I guess. Let's take it as that. And what's the best way to communicate to the candidates how important for the final decision is how well they performed on the test? Okay. So I guess in an ideal world,
that's the last time you get invited on here.
Oh, this is a friend, Katrina.
Can you tell that she's been in my mastermind? She's learnt all her curiosity.
she's asking the big question. So I guess this is in an ideal hiring process. What's the weight of those results from the tests? How do they factor into the final decision? And then how do you communicate that to the candidate?
If I may, I think it very much depends on the number of candidates. I think that's a big driver in how you design your process. So at TestGorilla, for our own company, we're very fortunate to get a lot of candidates, so typically in the thousands for any role. So yeah, there's a very big impact. So we're not looking at number 5,000, to be honest. We're looking at the top candidates, so the top 50 or 100 or something, and that's where we stop. Right, we look at those people, look at what they've done, their video answers, etc. If you only have 5 candidates, then I would recommend interview them all 5. Assess them all 5, right? It's a different process. So I think the number of candidates is a big driver in the weighing of the importance of an assessment.
And again, I go back to my, what are you weighing? If it's a personality test, it shouldn't be a deciding factor. That should be, hey, how will you get on with the team? How will we manage you? It shouldn't be a ruling you in and out. Absolutely. So there's also that side, and
just to clarify, I fully agree, and we don't give a score. We do provide personality tests, so we give you the results, but there's no scoring. You can use it for your interview process. Hey, I see this. Do you recognize that? It can be helpful for an interview.
Yeah, it's a conversation starter for sure. And actually, this goes on to the next question from Joel. I'd love to hear any thoughts on how to best to cater culture or personality matching between candidates and employers when hiring for a role. So perhaps that is the answer there, Wouter. So using something like a personality test within a sort of a more holistic assessment, but using it as just data, it's insights, it's ideas, it's maybe a conversation starter. It's no way would you base a hiring decision on that, right? Is there anything else that comes up for you there in hearing that question around culture and personality matching?
Yeah, I mean, we do also have... Oh, sorry, you go first.
Oh, sorry, no. See, I told you I'm an interrupter, 100% score.
You go,
what about not matching? Because actually, shouldn't we not be hiring people like us? So maybe it will be someone who doesn't interrupt, for example. But it could be that opposite person to really help you with that thinking. Maybe we spend too much time on the matching. I'm just going to throw that in. Now over to you, Walter, for the proper answer.
No. The way we look at it is indeed personality. We don't give a score. You can't use it to rule out or in people. We think it's different for example, the motivation test, about what kind of things motivate people and how that matches with the characteristics of the job and the environment. That is something that you actually can quantify. So that I just share the link. You can take a look at these. So there are some things that we think you can quantify. Personality is definitely not one of them. But some behaviors and other things you can, in our opinion.
Indeed. I've got a question here around coming back to that communication point, because I think it's struck a chord in the audience. Marissa's asking, how do you propose giving feedback to candidates who failed the test? Because of candidates that could get tricky. We've touched on it, but specifically, how do we do that? Trina,
not
you sound energized.
In the examples that I found, you don't go in and say, only the very best people in the world pass this test, right? Hey, unfortunately, you didn't pass in this particular instance. We have found that the people that did pass tended to have studied here, or they've read this, or they've done this. Send them to some more information. Don't be like this first company where they were like, you must not reapply, you must not do this test again for 12 months. I mean, the whole thing was... if you buy Reboot Hiring, you'll read it. It's just... be kind. How would you feel? What would you want to receive if you failed a test? And I think a lot of it is, hey, God, we empathize, tests are hard. In our experience, the people that succeed tend to have studied here or done this or read this or go to these conferences or they follow this podcast. Give them some information. Give them somewhere to learn more. We spoke to our developers, our developers about it, and they love this particular research or this particular place to practice and play. Even. So give them something. Show that you care, and it's so easy because it's just an automatic email. You can just add a paragraph of a bit of information. saying, hey, in this instance, you know, come back, try again later on another role when you've done some more practice and study. You know, don't get, you know, the door's not closed. That's the other thing. This company was so.
And Walter,
Can you tell I've had that pent up for a bit?
No, I agree. Indeed, just indeed being conscious about and considerate about the wording you pick. I mean, it's such a simple thing, even if it's automated, right? Like you can already make a difference. But indeed, with hundreds of candidates, it's hard to do or more to do it on a really personalized level. But you can use technology. For example, we offer like an intro video from the recruiter, like before the assessment starts. Like, hey, this is the job. This I am the hiring manager. This is the job about. Thank you for taking the time. That you can automate. So there's technology to make it a nicer process for people.
And you can say, hey, look, I know everybody tells you this, but we do genuinely get hundreds and hundreds of applications. And though, on a video, imagine hearing it like genuinely from someone. If I was in your position, I want to hear back too, but we just can't. And this is the best we're doing. You know, at least show that you genuinely mean that.
Yeah.
And then that's something, but you will get your test results. And I think it might be automatic, but you will get that. It mightn't be as personalized as you want.
But
I think just
finding the human. Yeah.
Be human.
We are almost at time. I've got one more question that I'd love you both to answer very snappily. What is the one takeaway that you're taking from this conversation today? So not necessarily the report as such, but what's your one takeaway from this conversation? Snappily to Katrina first.
I was just trying to pass the buck.
Oh, sorry.
To have the last word. I interrupt a lot. That's what I've learned today. I think that there is a great appetite for this, and it has its place. And it's about, I love the fact, and we need more technology and test providers to agree that it's about where you place it in the process. So it's just being really respectful and being really human. You know, use it to create great engagement and a great experience, what you would want to experience going through a hiring process. That would be my takeaway. Thanks.
And Walter, final word to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Katrina, for emphasizing just the candidate experience. I think that's just so important, right? On multiple levels, like in the communication upfront, afterwards, and just in how you design the test. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and I really appreciate that you emphasized that so much today. So that's so.
Well, important. They talk, they chat, they just throw future hiring. You know, it's besides being a lovely human thing to do.
For sure. Wonderful. Thank you so much to the two of you. I really appreciate all your thoughts, your insight, your energy and your passion for skills-based hiring. It's lovely to hear you talk about it. To those of you on the webinar, thank you so much for dialing in. Thank you for all your comments, your questions, your curiosity. It was lovely to see you here. I encourage you to all go and read the report right now. Stop what you're doing, go and read the report, read it again if you haven't read it already, and check out the rest of the things that TestGorilla is doing in the space of skills-based hiring. We're doing pretty cool stuff. That's it for today. It's been a pleasure hosting you and hope to see you around soon.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.